Well, the State Department is hiding its projects using the National Endowment for Democracy. That's the NED, and that is its cover. Now, this is not new necessarily. The NED has been acting as the CIA for decades. The New York Times, when they were still doing good reporting, reported this in the 1990s. They said the National Endowment for Democracy, created 15 years ago, does what the CIA does surreptitiously. So it's been doing this for decades. They describe the NAD's role as influencing domestic politics abroad, doing in the open what the CIA has done. So they have now been caught trying to censor speech of Americans, trying to influence foreign governments, trying to overthrow foreign governments. And they do this with our tax dollars through money funneled through the State Department. If you need more proof, look who they just hired, the queen of regime change, Victoria Nuland. They hired her in September, which means they're hardly trying to hide that they're evil, because if you know what this lady's been up to, you know that she masterminded the war in Ukraine, masterminded regime change in 2014. So she earned the war that she wanted with Russia. She's got exactly what she wanted. And she cannot tell the truth about that war in Ukraine. I doubt she's even a human. I think she's a lying bot. But former State Department official Mike Benz put it this way: Victoria Nuland is now the CIA's #1 cutout, the organization I keep warning you about, the NED. Well, Benz's own watchdog foundation, the Foundation for Freedom Online, the FFO, found in this new report that the State Department is using the NED to conduct secret projects. They found that the NED has a $300 million annual budget from the State Department. So that's taxpayer funded from us. And since 2021, they have failed to publish any grant project information, violating the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, meaning they do these secret things, government regime change, and they don't tell us about it, and it's funded through the State Department. Why can they do that? Because the State Department has decided to sort of let them borrow the classified status of sensitive. Here's how the FFO puts it. The endowment's management entered a legally questionable agreement where the Department of State grants officers to designate their entire federal appropriation as sensitive. So the State Department just says, well, let's say what you're doing is classified, it's sensitive, the American people can't know about it, so then we don't have to say what we're up to. Why is this allowed? Even FFO says it's probably not legal, but they're doing it. Did you know that when the U.S. was founded, only the State Department and the Department of Defense were allowed to use classification, because otherwise our government was founded on the principle of transparency, that the American people, we the people, get the right to know what happens with our government, what our government is up to, until 1951, when President Truman issued this Executive Order 10290. It set minimum standards for all government agencies to classify information as either secret, top secret, and confidential. When this happened in 1951, the press had an absolute fit over it. 250 members of the Associated Press protested. They were up in arms. New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, everywhere. But President Truman assured the public no actual government censorship would happen as a result of this. And here we are. So clearly there was no way he could assure the American people that the government would not abuse this power. They are. So now when the NED conducts its own censorship or propaganda campaigns, which we have caught them doing, we can't even watch them. We can't even know what they're up to. Here's something we covered last year in 2023. The Washington Examiner found that the NED had funneled at least $665,000, which came from the State Department, to the GDI, which is a British nonprofit group. And what did they do? They published a list ranking news organizations that either followed government propaganda or did not, and tried to pressure any retailers not to spend money in those outlets. In other words, comply with propaganda narrative, get a good rating, we let you make money. Report against government narrative, bad grade, we tell advertisers not to spend any money. Here's how the Washington Post reported that.
Well-funded disinformation tracking groups are part of a stealth operation blacklisting and trying to defund conservative media, likely costing news companies large sums in advertising dollars. A Washington Examiner investigation has found these companies compile a secret blacklist and feed them to ad companies, with the aim of defunding and shutting down disfavored speech. The Global Disinformation Indexes rates news outlets based on their alleged disinformation risk factor. Those they deem risky are placed on an exclusion list developed by GDI's advisory panel, which include Ben Nimmo, a global lead for threat intelligence at Facebook's parent company Meta, and journalist Anne Applebaum, who has said Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings are not, quote, interesting. The Washington Examiner is on GDI's exclusion list, but the Washington Examiner was never contacted by GDI or informed of how it failed to meet GDI's standards. GDI discloses in reports which outlets it identifies as the riskiest and worst offenders for peddling disinformation. The top 10 all skew to the right. Some on the list are Newsmax, The Federalist, The American Conservative, One America News, The Daily Wire, and Real Clear Politics. On the flip side, all the websites GDI ranks as the least riskiest lean left in their news coverage. These include NPR, The Associated Press, The New York Times, USA Today, and The Washington Post. GDI's disinformation tracking efforts have even resulted in opinion pieces being flagged. A Washington Examiner commentary article titled "The Less Gender-Bending Obsession is Tiresome and Absurd" was labeled as anti-LGBTQ+ disinformation. That same memo singled out Amazon for hosting ads in the Washington Examiner. Topics recently labeled disinformation relate to COVID-19, anti-vaccine content, mask protests, abortion, and alleged voter fraud during the 2020 presidential election. GDI is not alone among groups blacklisting certain websites while coordinating with ad companies. Another is DoubleVerify, a $4 billion publicly traded company that operates an inflammatory news index. The Washington Examiner has also been labeled as inflammatory by DoubleVerify. To read the full investigative piece, head to WashingtonExaminer.com. I'm Amy DeLaura for Washington Examiner.
Now, this is just a project they were doing to us to manipulate what information we saw, because the Washington Post did report the Hunter Biden laptop story, was not on board with the Russian propaganda that the government was against the war, trans ideology, the pandemic, what have you. So they got a bad grade. So this is the government trying to make sure that they collapse so that we don't see real reporting. Whereas the good ones, the Associated Press, the New York Times, those that are actually following government propaganda are getting good grades. So they are trying to censor information to the American people. We know they're doing this abroad as well, and trying to pervert information flow in order to exact regime change in places that they want. So these are just the projects we know about. What about the projects that we don't? So if you ask me, I would tell the new DOGE, the Department for Government Efficiency, run by Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, that the National Endowment is an NGO we absolutely should not be supporting. Let Victoria Nuland do this on her own dime, not taxpayer dime. Let me know what you think of this.
If you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message very carefully. What we know about pain relief is changing forever. As we age, aches and pains are normal, and we're all searching for effective ways to relieve pain without side effects and addiction. Let's be frank, we've all seen the horrors of the opioid crisis. You may even be affected personally. Your family might know someone that has been affected by this. That's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. You may have seen the world-renowned health expert featured in the national media. He's unveiled a natural pain reliever that has taken the world by storm. And I'm talking about Canoladine, the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. As you read this right now, Canoladine has become the go-to pain reliever for over 1 million Americans, hundreds of professional athletes. It was even named as the UFC's #1 official pain reliever for the UFC. Right now, you guys can try it. Go to trycano.com/redacted, and you're going to get it for less than $1 per day. You can access the only Canoladine product in the world for less than $1 per day. Clint has provided this special link for you guys. You can guys get this special discount. Just go to trycano.com/redacted. I see a bunch of people in the chat who've already ordered this. Give it a shot. If you suffer from chronic pain, you don't want to have that addiction from drugs, try kano.com/redacted, the 100% drug-free Canoladine. Try it for less than $1 a day.